More of ThesisGate's details are revealing themselves. Most recently, the University of London published emails related to finding Tsai's thesis. From the correspondence, we can extrapolate that someone within the school is helping Tsai Ing-wen. In the first set of emails, we see that this mysterious insider worked tirelessly to distort facts. Emails from 2011 and 2015 can attest to that. In 2011, that person successfully created the illusion that 3 physical copies of Tsai's thesis once existed, but mysteriously disappeared. In 2015, they elaborated on that story, saying that 2 copies were sent back to LSE, while 1 had been sent to IALS. However, later correspondence with Senate House Library and IALS revealed that neither library ever received a thesis called Unfair Trade Practices and Safeguard Actions. As external pressure to find Tsai's thesis mounted in 2015, the wrongdoers used a 2009 file from ProQuest database to prove the thesis's existence. However, this raised another question. How could the thesis have made it into ProQuest without the school's knowing? The ProQuest academic database does not accept entries from private individuals. Only schools can coordinate a thesis's entry into ProQuest's system. This meant that someone had been working from within the London schools to get Tsai's thesis into ProQuest. In 2015, the same information used for Tsai's ProQuest entry was logged into the British Library. The second set of files from the University of London proved one of investigators' main hypotheses, that the October 8, 2019 statement posted to the LSE website came from an external source and not from within the school. Not a single school department backed the statement, and the statement itself came from someone unrelated to the school. A person thought to be Shi Fanglong sent the statement to someone at the University of London's School of Advanced Studies in an attempt to get the school to back up the statement, but they failed. Like we've asked many times before, if the degree is real, then why is there a need to constantly lie and deceive? In the same vein, if the University of London is not covering for Tsai Ing-wen, why does it need to lie? In this episode, we will go over what the University of London has said about Tsai's degree over the past 3 years and expose everything. ThesisGate investigation efforts have gone on for 3 years now. You wouldn't know it by consuming Taiwanese media, though. Not only do major news outlets there refuse to report on Tsai's thesis controversy, internet users constantly muddle the truth online. In 2021, online news outlet RW News published 5 articles on ThesisGate. The 5 articles, however, failed to be objective. RW News even tried to vouch for Tsai Ing-wen. Though the articles were poorly written and barely circulated, they still piqued Dr. Huan Si-lin's interest. The person behind RW News, Si Wei-Trin, graduated from Birkbeck University, which is a University of London member institution, with a PhD in law. In a 2019 interview, he said that Tsai's degree is real. Why did he feel comfortable saying that? Shi said he heard someone who was in London with Tsai Ing-wen talk about Tsai writing her thesis, so it had to be real. RW News' ThesisGate coverage pretty much mirrors Shi's flimsy style. The person Shi referred to in his interview is former Mainland Affairs Council head Lai Xingyuan. Shi was once head of Lai's office. In January, Dr. Lin carried out a secret plan. He filed a Freedom of Information Act inquiry to find out who Shi Wei-chun's examiners were and when his viva was. In March 2022, this is how Birkbeck University responded. Question 1. What are the names of Mr. Wei-chun Shi's PhD examiners? Answer: NTU Professor Xia Zhujiu and Birkbeck University Professor Adam Geary. Question 2. When and where was the PhD viva held? Answer: 14th June 2018 at Birkbeck University in London. Question 3. When did Mr. Shi enter Birkbeck's MPhil PhD program? And what is the course length for Mr. Shi to earn his PhD? Answer: this is Mr. Shi's private information and will not be disclosed. We've talked about the 3 different levels of the UK's FOIA mechanisms before. It turns out examiner names, viva dates, and locations can be disclosed at the lowest level. Birkbeck University's responses about Shi prove that. This runs counter to what investigators have been told when searching for Tsai Ing-wen's information. Birkbeck University's responses show that Tsai Ing-wen receives preferential treatment from the University of London and LSE. They are protecting her and will go so far as to give false testimony in courts. Shi turned out to be a massive help to ThesisGate investigation efforts. Thanks to Shi, Michael Richardson, who has long searched for Tsai's examiner names, viva date, and location, finally has reason to base an appeal on. Just as we said before, if everything surrounding ThesisGate is legitimate, then why do the schools need to lie? While Michael Richardson searched for Tsai's examiners, the University of London kept dishing him lies. The ICO went along with the University of London and even told the tribunal false information. Let's take a look at what kind of lies the ICO and University of London have told the courts and the world. First, on October 21, 2019, Michael Richardson launched a Freedom of Information Act inquiry requesting Tsai's examiner names and viva date from LSE. LSE Information and Records Manager Rachel McGuire did as Birkbeck University did, and told Richardson that Tsai's viva date was on October 16, 1983. McGuire told Richardson that Tsai's examiners' identities were private and therefore could not be disclosed. On November 10, 2019, Richardson then diverted his questions to the University of London. University of London Data Protection and Information Compliance Manager Kit Good told Richardson that privacy restrictions prevented him from sharing that information. Good then said the school would conduct a 6-week internal review. Then he tossed the ball to the ICO, saying it would be up to them whether or not Tsai's examiners could be disclosed. On January 26, 2020, after Taiwan's presidential election, Director of Compliance and Secretary Rosalind Frendo said she agreed with Kit Good's decision. She said the University of London did not need to publish Tsai's examiner information, rejecting Richardson's Freedom of Information Act inquiry. On February 5, 2020, Richardson lodged a complaint with the ICO. His reasoning was that examiners play a vital role in a university's function. Examiner identities are a vital part of the University of London's degree awarding process. If a degree awarding process lacks transparency, then that process cannot be trusted. Therefore, withholding such information would damage and take away from the university's credit as a respected higher learning institution. The University of London should have to provide the information he requests. On March 24, 2020, the ICO came to a preliminary decision in which it told Richardson that it considers it likely that disclosing this information would cause that individual a degree of damage or distress. They then told Richardson, "Given the Commissioner's well-established position in cases such as yours, and the likely delay in progressing your complaint further, I encourage you to withdraw your complaint at this point." The ICO's responses to Richardson's requests are unreasonable. The University of London and ICO are playing games. They refuse to provide examiner names, which are of public interest. No matter how you look at it, something is wrong. If Tsai really had examiners, then Richardson's search should have ended where it ended for Lin when he asked for Shi's examiners. It would have only taken a day. Not only that, it would have cleared Tsai Ing-wen's name. In the files the University of London published, we see that on July 19, 2011, the school said, "Our records show the candidate was awarded in February 1984. It also clarifies that we were chasing the examiners and the candidate's supervisor for the return of the examination copies up to 1.5 years after the award was issued, but there is no written entry to clarify whether or not they were ever received back." If what the school archive says is true, then the school does have the names of Tsai Ing-wen's examiners. Why won't it publish them if it will help the school's cause and clear their name? At Michael Richardson's insistence, the ICO came out with a formal ruling on June 11, 2020. The ICO, on paper, sided with the University of London, saying Tsai's examiner and viva dates were private information. The ruling said the university is entitled to withhold the information the complainant has requested, as it is the personal data of third persons and disclosing it would be unlawful. It's clear the ICO has chosen to cover for Tsai as well, but the ICO also underestimated ThesisGate investigators. This erroneous, faulty, and dishonest ruling will ultimately sink the University of London and the ICO. The ICO will lose public trust, and its false testimony to the courts will be revealed. This ICO ruling said that the University of London fulfilled Richardson's request with what it had divulged. The ICO then expanded what constituted private information, allowing the University of London to conceal an embarrassingly large amount of information. Afterwards, the ICO spent 5 points talking about what constituted private information. Point 14 of the ruling stated, any information relating to an identified or identifiable living individual constituted private information. Then the 19th point said, the Commissioner considers that the date that President Tsai's thesis was assessed can also be categorized as her personal data. However, from what we learned about Shi, we know that this particular point in the ICO ruling is a lie. Never mind that examiner information should be publicly accessible information. The ICO's ruling implies that anyone who has a beneficial relationship with Tsai Ing-wen could have their identity concealed behind private information regulation. No one person should have such a powerful prerogative. Even with private information, legal mechanisms exist which can help reveal said information. For example, if the relevant person grants permission or if the private information is of public interest, that information can be brought to public light. Even so, the ICO and University of London teamed up to hide Tsai's data away. The ICO falsely determined that Tsai's examiners' identities were private information. Then they outlined 3 principles under which private information is divulged or used. The first principle is the legitimate interest test, whether a legitimate interest is being pursued in the request for information. The second is the necessity test, whether disclosure of the information is necessary to meet the legitimate interest in question. Third is the balancing test, whether the above interests override the legitimate interest or fundamental rights and freedoms of the data subject. The University of London, knowing these 3 principles, then fed ICO false information to make it look like Tsai had a legitimate degree, thereby negating any of the above tests. Kit Good told the ICO, "The university has told the commissioner that it holds a copy of the examination report for the thesis and the thesis copyright submission form. There is also a record of the individual and the thesis on the university's pass list published in that year." Then he told the ICO the university has advised that, in its response to separate FOI requests, it has stated that it holds records of the Viva and the pass list in regard to this graduate, President Tsai, and can therefore confirm the award of the degree. He added that it is unfortunate that the copy of President Tsai's thesis that the university library held was lost or misplaced between the mid-1980s and 2010s, during various restructuring changes to the library. However, Kit Good's successor, Susie Merriweather, said on whatdotheknow.com, the University of London has not published this thesis as no physical copy of the thesis was received into the university from examiners in 2022. Merriweather also said, "I am sorry, but the University of London does not hold any information relating to information held by LSE about Ing-wen Tsai. I am unable to give you any information in response to your questions about this. The primary record for PhD awards is held by the member institution, not the University of London." On November 26, 2021, the LSE Council told the ICO that it denied holding Tsai's Viva report or any information on the Viva report. The reality is, it doesn't matter if it's LSE or the University of London. Neither school has any records or information on Tsai's Viva. Not even the school's archives possess anything of that nature. After looking at the University of London's published files, it's more clear than ever why Good and Merriweather would give different answers to the same question. The content of Good's testimony to the ICO can be found in an earlier University of London email chain from July 19, 2011. The email said that archive records show adjoining forms that would have been sent to school libraries alongside Tsai's thesis were found. However, Merriweather's response on whatdotheknow.com was taken directly from the school library. Senate House Library's official stance is that it never received Tsai Ing-wen's thesis. Furthermore, Good blindly vouched for Tsai's Viva report even though it had never appeared. In 2022, both the University of London and LSE denied having it. Kate Good is working on behalf of Tsai's mysterious proxy at the schools. He clearly cooperated with them when he gave testimony to the ICO. He followed the details in the University of London email chain to the letter. In regards to Tsai's Viva report, all Kit had to do was give a testimony that was good enough. He couldn't commit to any specific details lest he put himself and ThesisGate at risk, but he did his job. Kate Good made it seem like there were 3 copies of Tsai's thesis. Then he said they had been lost sometime between the mid-1980s and 2010. However, this description of events was not good enough for the tribunal. On July 9, 2020, Michael Richardson appealed the ICO ruling and took the commissioner's office to tribunal. On July 17, 2020, the ICO requested that the tribunal deny Richardson's appeal on the grounds that he was not a UK citizen. Richardson's case was put on hiatus to determine the issue of nationality. On December 18, 2020, LSE Kevin Haynes came forward saying Tsai's examiners were Michael John Elliott and Leonard Lee. Haynes said this information came from the archives. However, Haynes' intervention was most likely an effort to avoid bringing the examiner issue to trial. On February 24, 2021, UK Administrative Court ruled that FOIA inquiries can be lodged by anyone regardless of nationality or residence. So long as inquiries are filed using a person's real name and address, that person has the right to file FOIA motions. Richardson's ICO case could continue. On March 27, 2021, the ICO delayed giving the court its plea 3 times. It put forth 4 reasons why the case should be dismissed. Number 1, Tsai's privacy was more important than public interest. Number 2, the court had limited influence in the matter. The ICO is the highest authority that could enforce information publication. 3, IALS's 1985 database was enough to fulfill the terms of Richardson's request, and 4, Tsai's skeptics were being litigated in Taiwan. As if he could tell something bad was going to happen when ThesisGate made it to court, Kate Good suddenly resigned from his university position in September 2021. On September 13, 2021, the tribunal issued a ruling siding with the ICO. The tribunal said that the University of London did not need to publish Tsai's examiners' names. The ruling was based on the ICO's ruling from June 11, 2020. The 2-year effort to unveil Tsai's examiners culminated in a court ruling that was based on faulty information. In November 2021, UK Information Commissioner Elizabeth Denham left her post. However, with how easy it was to get Shiwei Tren's Viva information, we see that Tsai has been getting preferential treatment even from UK authorities. What is this if not flagrantly problematic? Not only did Lin's FOIA inquiry to acquire Shi's examiner information reveal collusion and wrongdoing, it also exposed more academic malfeasance beyond that. It turns out one of Shi's examiners at Birkbeck University, NTU professor Xia Zhujiu, was his graduate supervisor. This is a huge breach of academic integrity. Shi was upfront about his academic history, publishing files on Facebook. He showed his student records and Viva report. Shi's files indicated he finished his thesis in 2008, but didn't undergo a Viva until 2018. Be that as it may, we must ask, did his school know about Shi's relationship with Xia when his Viva took place? Furthermore, Xia's expertise is architecture, specializing in building preservation. What business did he have acting as an examiner for a law degree? How did Birkbeck University go about finding Xia to act as Shi's examiner? Between 2009 and 2012, Shi was Lai Xingyuan's office director when Lai was Mainland Affairs Council minister. Between 2013 and 2016, he was deputy head of the cabinet's office in central Taiwan. Then, between 2016 and 2017, Shi was New Taipei City's Economic Development Bureau chief. In March 2016, Donghai University's Environmental Science and Engineering Department had Shi listed as an alumni with a PhD. That was a similar thing Tsai did in June 1983 when she contributed to NCCU's legal review. With the University of London files and this most recent FOIA inquiry into Shi's academic history, we have a clearer picture of what's going on. The next key is discrediting the ICO's June 11, 2020 ruling. These are the questions we have posed. Number 1. Please disclose any meeting minutes, including web conference recordings, email correspondence, text reports, related to ICO ex-commissioners reaching the wrong conclusion in the decision notice. Number 2. Has the ex-commissioner or case investigator ever asked a University of London library to provide a record of entry of this thesis in dispute? If not, why? 3. How do ex-commissioner agree the original copy held by the university library was lost or misshelved sometime between mid-1980s and 2010s, over which period there were numerous structural changes to the library? Who provided the false information and timeframe 1980s and 2010s misshelved information? The ICO is expected to come out with its answers to these questions at the end of April. A new information commissioner will be the one to answer them. Whether or not the new commissioner is a righteous and truthful individual, only time will tell. Since ThesisGate's beginning, the ICO has been outright unfriendly to investigators. ThesisGate's final trials will be a test of dignity, cultural values, and justice. We cannot take our foot off the gas. If we do, then conspirators in the UK are sure to do whatever they can to weasel out of telling the truth. The damage done would be irreversible. Keep sending in Freedom of Information Act inquiries. The slightest hole in the University of London's story may become the key we need to blow this entire scheme wide open.